Avignon 1327. The city pulsed with the lifeblood of Christendom, yet beneath the veneer of piety lurked a serpent of ambition and discontent. The papal palace, a testament to the Church's earthly power, stood as the epicenter of this world, a gilded cage for secrets and schemes. Within the palace walls, Pope John XXII, a man burdened by age and theological controversy, wrestled with matters of faith and doctrine. His pronouncements on the beatific vision had stirred a hornet's nest, inviting accusations of heresy and undermining his authority. Cardinal Orsini, a man consumed by ambition and resentment, saw the Pope's vulnerability as an opportunity. He believed John's policies were leading the Church to ruin, and he craved the power to steer it back on course, or rather, onto a course that served his own interests. The seeds of conspiracy began to sprout in the shadowy corners of Avignon. Orsini, a master of manipulation, gathered like-minded individuals, discontented nobles and ambitious clergymen, weaving a web of intrigue with promises of power and influence. In the papal palace's grand hall, Pope John, seemingly oblivious to the brewing storm, continued to defend his theological positions, further alienating factions within the Curia and inadvertently strengthening Orsini's hand. Orsini watched, a predator patiently stalking its prey. Each word spoken by the Pope, each disapproving glance from a fellow cardinal, fueled his resolve. The time for action, he believed, was fast approaching. Not all were blinded by ambition. Cardinal Guillaume, a man of unwavering faith and loyalty, sensed the darkness gathering within the papal palace. He watched Orsini with growing unease, his keen intellect piecing together the fragments of a disturbing puzzle. Driven by a sense of duty, Guillaume began his own investigation, delving into forgotten archives and seeking answers in the shadows. He knew that exposing a conspiracy within the Curia would be a perilous task, but he was prepared to risk everything to protect the Church. Unbeknownst to Guillaume, Orsini's ambition had led him down a dangerous path. He dabbled in forbidden knowledge, seeking supernatural means to achieve his goals. The line between political maneuvering and dark magic blurred with each passing day. Guillaume's investigation began to bear fruit. Whispers reached his ears, rumors of secret gatherings, strange rituals, and Orsini's growing obsession with the occult. The evidence was circumstantial, but it painted a disturbing picture. As Orsini delved deeper into the occult, his grip on reality seemed to loosen. He believed he could manipulate events through magic, that he could orchestrate the Pope's downfall and seize control of the Church. He was wrong, but the price of his delusion would be steep. The shadow of the papal palace stretched long over Avignon, a harbinger of the storm to come. The stage was set for a battle between faith and heresy, loyalty and betrayal, a conflict that would determine the fate of the papacy itself. Cardinal Orsini, consumed by his ambition, delved into forbidden knowledge. He sought arcane secrets, believing they held the key to manipulating the papacy. The whispers of ancient magic echoed in his heart. Driven by his thirst for power, Orsini sought out those rumored to possess arcane skills. Secret meetings took place under the cloak of darkness, where forbidden knowledge was exchanged for promises of influence and wealth. Cardinal Guillaume, a devout man of unwavering faith, sensed a growing darkness within the Curia. He dedicated himself to prayer, seeking guidance and strength to confront the looming threat. Guillaume, a scholar of canon law, meticulously researched theological texts, seeking to understand the nature of heresy and the dangers it posed to the Church. Orsini, emboldened by his newfound knowledge, conducted dark rituals, attempting to harness supernatural forces for his own gain. The line between ambition and heresy blurred with each passing incantation. Orsini subtly manipulated the Pope, planting seeds of doubt and suspicion, skillfully exploiting John XXII's concerns about his own theological standing. Guillaume, driven by his loyalty to the Church, cautiously investigated Orsini's actions, seeking to uncover the truth without alerting the cardinal or his allies. Orsini, fearing exposure, plotted to discredit Guillaume, fabricating evidence to implicate him in heresy. The shadows of deceit grew darker, threatening to engulf the Church. Guillaume discovered the trap laid for him, realizing the depth of Orsini's treachery. He knew he had to act swiftly to expose the conspiracy before it consumed everything he held dear. Orsini solidified his cabal, gathering support from those who shared his ambition and resentment towards the Pope. The conspiracy deepened, threatening to fracture the very foundation of the Church. Pope John XXII, burdened by the challenges facing the Church and the controversies surrounding his own theological views, remained unaware of the viper's nest growing within his own court. Guillaume, armed with the truth and unwavering faith, prepared to confront Orsini, knowing that the fate of the papacy and the Church hung in the balance. The stage was set for a final, decisive confrontation. The air hung thick with anticipation as Orsini laid bare his grievances against Pope John XXII. He painted a grim picture of a church teetering on the brink of ruin, steered by a pontiff detached from divine guidance. His words, carefully chosen, resonated with the discontent simmering within the hearts of those present. Among those present was Cardinal Annibaldi, a man burdened by debts and yearning for greater influence. Orsini, with practiced ease, offered him a tantalizing glimpse of a future where his ambitions could be realized, contingent upon their collective success. He was carefully planting seeds of dissension. Count de Foix, a powerful landowner chafing under the Pope's fiscal policies, readily pledged his support. Orsini's promise of a more favorable distribution of church wealth struck a chord with the avaricious count, sealing their alliance. The secret society solidified, its members bound by oaths sworn in shadows. Each pledged their allegiance to Orsini's cause, their shared resentment of the Pope forging an unholy alliance fueled by greed and ambition. Guillaume, a man of unwavering faith and loyalty, began to notice subtle shifts in Orsini's behavior. A newfound secrecy, hushed conversations in corridors, and an uncharacteristic withdrawal from papal duties aroused his suspicions. He meticulously reviewed Orsini's financial dealings, searching for any irregularities that might shed light on his activities. Discrepancies began to emerge, subtle yet troubling, hinting at a clandestine diversion of church funds. Guillaume confided in Brother Thomas, a trusted Dominican friar known for his discretion and wisdom. He shared his concerns about Orsini, seeking counsel on how to proceed cautiously, balancing his loyalty to the Church with the need to uncover the truth. Unbeknownst to Guillaume, Orsini sensed the growing scrutiny. He became increasingly paranoid, his actions driven by a desperate need to conceal his activities and protect his burgeoning power. Orsini, with cunning manipulation, sought to preempt Guillaume's investigation by subtly poisoning Pope John's mind against him. He painted Guillaume as an overly zealous traditionalist, resistant to the progressive theological views the Pope himself espoused. Orsini knew that Pope John XXII's controversial teachings on the beatific vision made him vulnerable. Guillaume, sensing the growing unease surrounding him, sought solace and guidance in prayer. He implored divine intervention, praying for the strength to persevere in his pursuit of truth and protect the Church from the insidious threat he perceived. Driven by his lust for power, Orsini delved deeper into the occult, seeking to harness dark forces to influence the upcoming papal elections. He believed that by manipulating events through supernatural means, he could secure his position as the next pope. Guillaume, determined to uncover the full extent of Orsini's treachery, began to shadow his movements, venturing into the shadowy back alleys of Avignon, where secrets thrived and danger lurked around every corner. He was getting closer to discovering the dark truth at the heart of the conspiracy. Beneath the grandeur of his cardinal's palace, Orsini prepared for his ritual. The air in the hidden chamber crackled with anticipation. The symbols he had painstakingly copied from ancient grimoires pulsed with an energy that defied explanation, their forms hinting at forgotten powers. With a trembling hand, Orsini raised the dagger. The parchment, inscribed with the Pope's name, seemed to writhe in the dim light. Unbeknownst to the pontiff, a dark influence was being cast upon him. He felt a sudden chill, a premonition he couldn't explain. Guillaume, driven by his growing unease, delved deeper into his investigation. He sought answers in the dusty pages of forgotten lore. The text spoke of rituals and incantations, of forces that could be summoned and controlled, but at a terrible price. He sought counsel from Brother Thomas, a Benedictine monk known for his wisdom and discretion. The monk listened intently, his face growing grim as Guillaume recounted his suspicions. The decree, subtly altered to favor Orsini's allies, was a testament to the ritual's power. He felt a surge of triumph, but also a nagging unease. Guillaume meticulously analyzed the decree, his keen eye spotting the subtle manipulations that betrayed Orsini's hand. His network of informants, carefully cultivated over years of service to the Church, provided him with whispers and fragments of truth, painting a disturbing picture of Orsini's activities. Driven by his ambition and emboldened by his initial successes, Orsini delved deeper into the forbidden arts, his obsession growing with each passing day. Guillaume, knowing the stakes, sought divine guidance. He prayed for strength, wisdom, and the courage to confront the darkness that threatened to engulf the Church. Whispers, like tendrils of smoke, began to weave their way through the alleys and corridors of Avignon. Tales of strange gatherings, hushed incantations, and Cardinal Orsini's growing seclusion stirred a disquiet within the city. These rumors, carried on the breath of servants and the furtive glances of lesser clergy, reached the ears of Guillaume, Cardinal Bishop of Sabina, a man known for his unwavering devotion and keen intellect. Guillaume, acting with deliberate caution, began his inquiry. He first sought out Brother Thomas, a young novice known for his sharp memory and access to the monastery library. "Tell me, brother," Guillaume inquired, his voice low and steady, "have you noticed anything unusual regarding Cardinal Orsini's recent requests for texts?" "Forgive me, Your Eminence," the novice stammered, but the cardinal requested several forbidden texts, books on alchemy and demonology. They are kept locked away, accessible only with special permission. Guillaume then visited the apothecary, a wizened old man known for his discretion. "Old man," Guillaume began, "has Cardinal Orsini purchased any unusual ingredients lately? Anything that might be used for unorthodox purposes?" The apothecary hesitated before replying, He sought mandrake root, my lord, and belladonna, in large quantities. Such things are not usually requested by men of the cloth. Deepening his investigation, Guillaume sought out a former servant of Cardinal Orsini, a man dismissed for insubordination. They met in a dark alleyway, shrouded in secrecy. "Tell me what you know," Guillaume urged, his voice barely a whisper. "The cardinal, he performs rituals, your eminence. In a hidden chamber beneath his palace, I saw strange symbols painted on the floor, heard chants in a language I did not understand." Guillaume, his heart heavy with dread, sought an audience with Pope John XXII. He presented his findings, carefully laying out the fragments of evidence he had gathered. The Pope listened in silence, his aged face betraying nothing of his thoughts. "Heresy, you say?" Pope John finally spoke, his voice raspy with age. "Accusations against a cardinal are not to be made lightly, Guillaume. Orsini is a man of influence. Have you considered the consequences of such a claim?" "I am aware of the risks, your holiness," Guillaume replied, his voice unwavering. "But I cannot ignore the evidence before me. The Church is in danger. We must act before it is too late." Unbeknownst to Orsini, as he walked through the halls of power, a web of suspicion was tightening around him. The seeds of doubt had been sown, and their roots were beginning to spread. Guillaume, despite the Pope's initial skepticism, continued his vigil. He knew that the truth would eventually surface, but the cost of uncovering it could be far greater than he imagined. He prayed for guidance, for strength, and for the salvation of the Church he so dearly loved. Orsini's machinations began to bear fruit. The subtle nudges he'd given to fate through his arcane practices were manifesting in tangible gains. Appointments were swayed, favors granted, and his influence within the Curia swelled like a poisoned bloom. The Pope, increasingly reliant on Orsini's counsel, remained oblivious to the cardinal's true motives. John XXII, burdened by the weight of the papacy and his own theological struggles, saw in Orsini a loyal and capable servant. Guillaume, driven by an unshakable sense of duty, delved deeper into his investigation. He spent countless hours poring over records, piecing together the fragments of Orsini's illicit activities. A frightened novice, haunted by what he had witnessed, sought out Guillaume. He spoke of whispered incantations, strange symbols, and a palpable sense of dread emanating from Orsini's private chambers. Orsini, emboldened by his successes, tightened his grip on the levers of power. He gathered his co-conspirators, weaving a web of deceit that threatened to ensnare the entire papal court. Guillaume discovered irrefutable proof of Orsini's treason, a fragment of parchment bearing the unmistakable signs of a forbidden ritual. The evidence was damning, leaving no room for doubt. The true cost of Orsini's ambition became starkly apparent. Innocent lives were shattered, families ruined, all sacrificed at the altar of his insatiable hunger for power. His manipulations had far-reaching and devastating effects. Blind to the suffering he inflicted, Orsini reveled in his newfound power, hosting lavish feasts and basking in the adulation of his followers. He believed himself untouchable, a master of his own destiny. Before confronting Orsini, Guillaume sought solace and guidance in prayer. He knew that the path ahead would be fraught with peril, but his conscience left him no other choice. The confrontation was inevitable. Guillaume, armed with irrefutable evidence, cornered Orsini in a secluded courtyard. The air crackled with unspoken accusations and simmering animosity. Orsini, caught off guard, vehemently denied the charges, attempting to deflect suspicion and maintain his carefully constructed facade of innocence. But Guillaume stood firm, presenting the damning evidence before him. The charred parchment, a testament to Orsini's dark practices, spoke volumes, silencing his denials and sealing his fate. The price of ambition was about to be paid. Cardinal Guillaume, armed with his accumulated evidence, resolved to confront Orsini directly. He could no longer stand idly by while the cardinal's heretical activities threatened the very foundation of the church. Unaware of Guillaume's impending arrival, Orsini reveled in the success of his subtle manipulations. He felt the reins of power slowly but surely tightening in his grasp, his ambition blinding him to the approaching storm. "Cardinal Orsini," Guillaume began, his voice resonating with righteous indignation, "I have come to you with grave concerns, concerns that strike at the very heart of our faith." Orsini raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. "Guillaume, to what do I owe this unpleasant surprise? I trust this is not some idle gossip you bring before me." Guillaume presented the evidence transcriptions of Orsini's secret meetings, accounts of his dabbling in forbidden texts, and testimonies from those who had witnessed his rituals. "These are not idle tales, Orsini. They are proof of your heresy." Orsini scoffed, picking up one of the documents and skimming it with feigned disinterest. "Heresy? Guillaume, you wound me. This is nothing but fabricated nonsense, the work of envious rivals seeking to undermine my position. Do you deny your involvement with these practices, Orsini?" Guillaume pressed, his voice laced with controlled anger. "Do you deny summoning forces beyond the realm of God?" Orsini's facade of innocence crumbled slightly. A dangerous glint appeared in his eyes. "I deny nothing that cannot be proven, and I assure you, Guillaume, these accusations are baseless. Perhaps it is you who have been consorting with dark forces, poisoning your mind with suspicion and lies." Guillaume felt a chill run down his spine, sensing the dark energy emanating from Orsini. He knew then that he was facing not just a political rival, but a man consumed by dangerous forces. Orsini subtly pressed his advantage, attempting to cloud Guillaume's mind with doubt and fear. He sought to plant seeds of distrust, turning the cardinal bishop's own faith against him. Guillaume, drawing strength from his unwavering faith, resisted Orsini's insidious influence. He focused his mind, reciting prayers under his breath, warding off the encroaching darkness. Orsini, seeing his attempt to manipulate Guillaume fail, lost his composure. "You are a fool, Guillaume," he hissed. "A blind, self-righteous fool. You will regret crossing me." The standoff had reached its climax, both sides poised for the inevitable clash that would determine the fate of the papacy. The weight of the church pressed heavily on Pope John XXII. Accusations flew like poisoned darts, and doubt clouded even the clearest minds. He couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. Guillaume, his voice resonating with righteous conviction, began to lay out his case. Each document, each testimony, painted a damning portrait of Cardinal Orsini's descent into heresy and treason. Orsini listened, his composure seemingly unyielding, but beneath the surface, a storm raged. He knew his carefully constructed facade was beginning to crumble. The Pope's heart was heavy. He had known both men for years, and the thought of one betraying the church and the other falsely accusing him was almost unbearable. With practiced skill, Orsini launched his defense. He twisted Guillaume's words, questioned his motives, and presented a carefully constructed narrative of his own innocence. Guillaume remained steadfast, his eyes never leaving Orsini's. He knew the cardinal was a master of deception, but he was prepared to meet each lie with the unwavering truth. The Pope listened, his mind racing, his heart heavy. The fate of the Church and perhaps his own soul hung in the balance. The gravity of the situation threatened to overwhelm him. Orsini, sensing the Pope's wavering resolve, subtly courted the support of his allies within the College of Cardinals, reminding them of past favors and future promises. Guillaume observed Orsini's subtle manipulations with a growing sense of dread. He knew the cardinal's influence ran deep, and the truth might be lost in a sea of political maneuvering. The Pope, his face etched with fatigue and doubt, raised his hand, silencing the murmurs that filled the hall. The moment of decision had arrived. Guillaume stood firm, his faith in the Church and his loyalty to the Pope unwavering. He could only hope that the truth would prevail against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. Orsini stood, his heart pounding, the carefully constructed edifice of his ambition teetering on the brink of collapse. All that remained was the Pope's judgment. The gravity of Guillaume's accusations hung heavy in the air. Pope John XXII, despite his advanced age, understood the implications. If even a fraction of what Guillaume alleged was true, it could shatter the papacy. He reluctantly ordered a formal inquiry, summoning the College of Cardinals to convene. Guillaume meticulously presented his evidence to the assembled cardinals. He laid out documented discrepancies in Orsini's financial dealings, testimonies from individuals who had witnessed strange rituals, and circumstantial evidence linking Orsini to known practitioners of the occult. He spoke with calm authority, unwavering in his conviction. Orsini vehemently denied all accusations. He skillfully parried Guillaume's claims, presenting counterarguments and casting doubt on the credibility of the witnesses. He accused Guillaume of being motivated by jealousy and personal vendettas, portraying himself as a victim of a malicious smear campaign. Pope John XXII listened with a heavy heart. He knew the Church was rife with political maneuvering and personal rivalries, but the allegations of heresy and the occult were a different matter entirely. The beatific vision dispute still haunted him, making him cautious of any accusation of heresy. The questioning of witnesses continued for days. Guillaume, with his sharp intellect and knowledge of canon law, skillfully cross-examined each individual, revealing inconsistencies and hidden motives. The pressure mounted on Orsini as the evidence against him began to solidify. Desperate, Orsini resorted to his occult practices. He performed a dark ritual, attempting to influence the cardinals' minds and turn the tide in his favor. He believed he could use his newfound power to manipulate the outcome of the inquiry and silence his accusers. The cardinals gathered to deliberate. The evidence was presented, the arguments were made, and the fate of Orsini and perhaps the papacy itself hung in the balance. The debate was fierce, with deep divisions among the cardinals regarding Orsini's guilt or innocence. Pope John XXII watched the deliberations with growing anxiety. He knew that the decision they reached would have profound consequences for the Church, regardless of the outcome. The rumors of heresy had already damaged his reputation and threatened the stability of the papacy. As the cardinals prepared to vote, Orsini made his final, desperate move. He unleashed the full extent of his occult power, attempting to subtly influence their minds and force them to acquit him. He focused his will, projecting his desires into the minds of the cardinals, hoping to sway their judgment. Guillaume, ever vigilant, sensed the subtle shift in the atmosphere. He recognized the telltale signs of Orsini's dark magic and understood the danger. He knew he had to act quickly to counter Orsini's influence. The cardinals, caught in the crosscurrent of Orsini's magic and Guillaume's silent resistance, struggled to maintain their focus. Confusion and doubt clouded their minds, making it difficult to discern the truth. Despite the turmoil, Pope John XXII, guided by a flicker of divine intuition, sensed the corruption at play. He rose from his throne, his voice firm and unwavering, and called for a vote. The fate of Cardinal Orsini and the integrity of the papacy would be decided. The morning sun filtered through the stained glass of the papal palace, illuminating the solemn assembly. The College of Cardinals, their faces grim, awaited Pope John XXII's pronouncement. The evidence against Cardinal Orsini had been presented, debated, and weighed. Now, judgment was at hand. Cardinal Orsini stood before his peers, the scarlet of his robes a mocking echo of the power he once wielded. His eyes darted around the room, seeking a flicker of support, a hint of salvation, but found only cold judgment in the faces of his brothers. The weight of his actions pressed upon him, a crushing burden he could no longer deny. Cardinal Guillaume observed Orsini, his heart heavy with the knowledge of the man's betrayal. He had never wished for this outcome, but the truth had demanded to be revealed. He prayed for Orsini's soul, even as justice was served. Pope John XXII rose, his aged frame radiating an unexpected strength. He spoke with a voice that resonated with the authority of St. Peter himself, declaring the verdict. The words echoed through the hall, sealing Orsini's fate. The scarlet robes, symbols of his former eminence, were stripped from Orsini's shoulders. His face, once proud and arrogant, now reflected the bitterness of his fall. The courtyard of the papal palace became his stage for public humiliation. Guillaume watched the spectacle, his heart heavy. Justice had been served, but the wounds inflicted on the church would take time to heal. He knew the path ahead would be challenging, but he was resolved to dedicate his life to the restoration of faith and order. In the aftermath of Orsini's downfall, Pope John XXII addressed the College of Cardinals. He spoke of the need for vigilance, for unwavering adherence to the teachings of the Church, and for the rejection of all forms of heresy and corruption. Cardinal Guillaume was vindicated. His courage and unwavering loyalty to the Church were recognized by his peers. He received their congratulations with humility, understanding that his actions had been driven by duty, not personal gain. Stripped of his titles and power, Orsini was confined to the dungeons beneath the papal palace. His dreams of glory had been reduced to ashes, replaced by the cold reality of his sins. He would spend his remaining days in repentance, a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition. In the quiet solitude of his private chapel, Pope John XXII sought solace in prayer. The events surrounding Orsini had shaken him deeply, forcing him to confront the darkness that could lurk even within the highest echelons of the Church. He prayed for guidance, for the strength to lead his flock through these troubled times. Cardinal Guillaume walked through the gardens of Avignon, the scent of roses filling the air. The events of the past weeks had left their mark, but he felt a sense of peace knowing that he had done what was right. He understood that the Church was a human institution, prone to error and corruption, but its foundation of faith remained strong. The shadow of the papal crown had been lifted, at least for now. The Church, scarred but not broken, stood firm against the storms of heresy and ambition. The lessons learned in Avignon would echo through the ages, a reminder of the importance of unwavering faith, the dangers of unchecked power, and the eternal struggle between good and evil.